Today, we light the candle of hope, recognizing that Jesus is the hope of the world. Hear the word of the Lord.
The people who walk in darkness will see a great light, a light that will shine on all who live in the land where death casts its shadow. For the child is born to us, a son is given to us, and the government will rest upon his shoulders. These will be his royal titles: Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His ever-expanding peaceful government will never end. He will rule forever with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David. The passionate commitment of the Lord Almighty will guarantee this.
Good morning. Welcome to Advent Christmas season at Salem Fields. And whether this is your first time or you've been here forever, we want to welcome you. And we're praying that this season will be a season that will touch you and that you'll go to a next level in your relationship with God as you realize that God, who is way out there, moved into the neighborhood and made his home with us. And so we're excited you're here this weekend, and we would encourage you throughout this season. I think Abby said it earlier, just continue to invite people, not just on Christmas Eve, but continue to invite people to services, because this season's sermon series is called Known by Name. And here's what we want to do is we want to help you understand what the names of Jesus, the prophesied Jesus, mean to us, what it meant to them back then, and what it means to us today. Hey, here's what I know about Christmas. Sometimes, for some people, Christmas is this season that they get really hopped up, right? They get really excited, and they decide to be nice for a month, and they're getting presents, and they're doing all of this stuff, and they just come alive during the Christmas season. And then there's some of us who Christmas is not as exciting as it is for other folks, because maybe we've lost a loved one, or maybe we're between jobs, or we don't have the money that we would like to have so that we could buy the presents that we want to buy, or maybe it's just the winter blues. You know, the clock's falling back and it's getting darker early, and this snow and rain and all this stuff that came early. Here's the deal. We were moving on Tuesday when we had that whole deluge of rain, and then from one house, and then we were moving into the next house on the next day when it snowed. And so I don't get the blues, but that was a really bad 2 days. Some of you will understand what I mean when I talk about the roller coaster ride we can have during the holidays. You know, sometimes family in, and there's a lot of stuff to do, and there's hustle and bustle, and then there is the traffic. There is the traffic. And so there's a lot of stuff going on, but here's what I want you to know, that Jesus is the one voice. Jesus is the one voice that cuts through all of life's confusion and leads us forward. That Jesus is the one voice that cuts through all of life's confusion and leads us forward. Let me set the scene for you, two scenes for you. The first scene is the scene where I was commuting. I used to commute up in that traffic every morning from here to Annandale, Virginia, when I was pastoring a church up there. And I started to make the stop at Starbucks. And I would go every day. And here's the scene that would happen. I would pull up, and they would say, "Hey, James, how are you? Would you like your 4-shot extra tall, the largest one? I forgot, I don't go to Starbucks anymore, but the largest cup. Would you like that? 4 shots, 200 degrees, caramel macchiato, extra caramel, extra whipped cream, and 2 raw sugars." I can't do that anymore because I became pre-diabetic doing that for 15 years. But they would know me. They would know my drink. They would know my name. They would know my car. There's something about being known. Here's the second scene. This is not a long time ago. This is recent. So I pull up to Popeyes. You're going to learn a lot about what I like in these sermons. I pull up to Popeyes, and the person says, "Hey, friend, how are you? Hey, you're going to have your 12 wings, you know, your mashed potatoes, and your drink with no ice," and they knew me. There's something about being known. I mean, she knew my order. She knew my voice. And for a split second, I thought, man, That's the kind of recognition I wish heaven had on speed dial. Don't we crave to have people know us? A voice that knows who we are, a voice that calls us by name and actually gets us what we need. I think we crave that. But let's be real. December doesn't usually feel like that. I mean, there's Christmas traffic and jam-packed calendars and all kinds of parties and Amazon delivery trucks that get stuck in limbo. And most of us are living on this I-95 corridor with backups and horns blaring and tempers rising and emotions overheating and all. And then you add to that the political unrest and wars and media distractions. And in the middle of all of that, people are giving you advice. I mean, unsolicited advice. I mean, you have a situation and someone always has a solution, a three-part solution to whatever situation that is going on in your life. It's one thing if I asked you, but it's another thing when you offer it unsolicited. The world's shouting instructions from every lane, but somehow no one is getting anywhere. And so Isaiah, the prophet, steps into the chaos with a promise that slices through all of the noise. Would you hear the promise? For a child has been born for us, the gift of a son for us, and his names will be Amazing Counselor. Or maybe you've heard it like this: for unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Here's where we're going in the message today. Today isn't about pretending like some of us do. You know, we come and we put our mask on and we look good and we put a smile on and all of that kind of stuff. Today is not about pretending that confusion isn't real. It's about finding the one voice that knows how to guide us forward even in the middle of confusion. See, Jesus is the one voice that cuts through all of life's confusion and leads us forward home. I'm going to say that again. Jesus is the one voice that cuts through all of the confusion, all of the noise, all of the cells, all of the traffic, all of the gridlock, all of the fear, all of the pain, all of the sadness, all of the blues, cuts through it all and leads us forward. I decided to take a trip yesterday to the mall into Central Park. I don't know why I did it. But I just decided we would go. We went as family. We're going to go look at some furniture stores. And I don't know where it came from, but it was Christmas Eve-like traffic going up 3. I don't know whether it's because it was cold outside and kind of the weather was a little nasty and everybody wanted to go to the mall, but everybody was there. I mean, so, you know, the light would change and no cars would move because we were that backed up. And then when you got in the mall, oh my goodness. I mean, everybody's rude. Everybody's cutting you off, using hand language and all kinds of stuff like that. You know, bad drivers, you know, all of the stuff that goes along with that. I don't know about you, but after doing the commute for 15 years from here to Annandale, Virginia, I don't like traffic. I decided that I just don't like the traffic. But that didn't just start here in Fredericksburg on I-95. Isaiah's world, the prophet Isaiah's world was anything but peaceful. The Assyrians, the big guns, the heavy tank nation kind of went through Israel like T-Rexes in a minivan parking lot. I mean, God's people were panicking. They were chasing every shortcut. They were turning to psychics and turning to fortune tellers for directions. Sounds a little bit familiar. Different year, same confusion. We Google our way through problems. We scroll for peace. We medicate our stress, but the noise keeps building. And into that noise and into that chaos, the prophet speaks. And God says, I'm sending you a counselor so amazing, so wonderful, so beyond comprehension. He will make sense of everything that doesn't make sense. The word amazing, wonderful counselor is this word Palel Yoez. The phrase wonderful counselor, here's what it means. Palel means extraordinary, incomprehensible, miraculous. And then Yoich means advisor, strategist, ultimate guide. And you mash them together, and what you come up with is God is saying you have this marvelous strategist, someone who understands battles that you don't even know are headed your way, someone with wisdom that blows your mind and grace that steadies your soul. Isaiah was saying the one who's coming isn't just a good listener. He's the ultimate leader. Jesus doesn't just hear our pain, he gives purpose to our pain. He doesn't just help us feel better, he leads us toward better. His counsel is not just human therapy, it's a divine strategy. And so when stuff is going bad in your life and when you feel like things are happening that are out of control, he says, listen, you have access to this amazing, wonderful counselor. Fast forward from that prophecy to Isaiah 800 years, and the promise gets skin, flesh, bone, and muscle, and moves into the neighborhood. It's the greatest miracle that's ever happened. The counselor shows up in our zip code, our neighborhood. And when Jesus came, no one realized it, but he had God's brain and God's heart and people skills that could disarm the hardest hearts. He didn't offer quick fixes. He sat with people. He listened to them before he was speaking. He heard their pain. He ministered to them. He had actually come down to become like them so they could become like him. So he could feel their heart. He could listen to them. He could heal them. He could speak to them. He could transform them from the inside out. And that same God who moved into the neighborhood, who moved into the zip code, is the same God who speaks words that still guides us today. And then before he kind of left this world and went back to heaven, he said that he would keep the counseling session going. He said that he would send us a counselor, one who would not just be able to make an appointment with us, but one who would live inside of us, one who would be with us 24/7. No need to set an appointment. I did about 3 years of counseling because I hadn't dealt with the stuff in my life. I would say to you, if you haven't dealt with your stuff, deal with your stuff, because it always comes out in bad ways. So I had a counselor, and I went to her, and her name was Hedrika Vanderkamp. I will never forget her name because she had worked at Fuller Seminary with a bunch of pastors. She was a professor there, and she had been married to a pastor and had been divorced, and so she didn't have time for pastors. And so when I showed up in her office, she was not impressed with me. And she let me know right away that she wasn't impressed with me. Now, I'm used to people being impressed with me, but she wasn't. And she told me, she said, I'm not impressed with you. And so for a while there, we sat there, and I didn't say anything. And she looked at me and said, if you want to pay me $300 an hour to sit there and look at me, I will take your $300. And I knew this was a different situation. As I began to unpack some of the stuff that I hadn't dealt with, I had this brag thing back in the day that I was like Teflon. Nothing was going to be able to bother me. All the stuff that you could throw at me, all of the stuff that you could say to me would just kind of slide right off of me. And I bragged to her about how Teflon I was, and I remember her words. She said, James, life is not about Teflon, it's about Velcro. I was like, well, if you're insinuating that I got to get close to people so that I can live, you got the wrong person here. No one's going to hurt me again. Another thing that she said to me was that you can't get over what you won't admit. And as good as Hendrika was for that 3 years, she's nothing compared to the amazing, wonderful counselor. The one who is at your disposal 24/7, the one that you can go to, the one who is there, the one that knows you. He knows you're coming and you're going. He's known you from the day you were born to the day that you die, and every day in between. That counselor, that amazing counselor, was what Isaiah was talking about when he said that unto you a child is born, a son is given, and his name will be Amazing, Wonderful Counselor. See, when your thoughts loop like traffic, he whispers peace. Left here, slow down, stop. See, Jesus knows the real you. I know you may believe that no one knows you. Let me say to you, Jesus knows the real you, not the mask, not what you're trying to pretend, not the face that you put on every day. Jesus knows where you're headed. Jesus knows why life feels like it's in gridlock. His voice cuts through all of the confusion and the chaos. And his directions are always good for you. So when life feels gridlocked, Jesus is your off-ramp for peace. I remember during the 95 commute, and it's always been about Stafford. As the fast lanes came down, the high capacity lanes, whatever they were called, HOV, yeah. As they came down, it would always gridlock wherever it would stop. So it first stopped at Quantico, and then that would be the gridlock. And then it stopped at Stafford, and that would be the gridlock. Well, now it's stopping at Fredericksburg, and that's the gridlock. And I would always say, man, if I could get to this off-ramp, if I could get to this exit, I can get off and I can go back one. But that didn't work either because one was already backed up by the time you got. You know how that works. But I always try to get to the off-ramp. Can I say to you, when life is messed up, if you're going through the Christmas blues today, if you feel like your resources don't match with your giving spirit, can I say that God, the amazing, wonderful counselor, is your off-ramp to peace? Can I talk to you a little bit about peace? When I say peace, the Bible talks about peace. It's not talking about the sensation of war and violence and all that. This peace the Bible talks about is this deep-seated sense down deep in your heart that no matter what happens, no matter what the circumstances or the situations, that it's going to be all right because I trust in God. It's the kind of peace that when the money doesn't match your giving spirit, you can say, God, you got this. I'm going to be all right. It's the kind of peace when you get a diagnosis from the doctor that doesn't sound good, you can just say, God, take this. I can't do this. When your kids go off the deep end and you're worried about it, you can give it to God and say, God, I trust you in this. It's the kind of peace that is not dependent on your circumstances and your situations. Because many of us know if it was about circumstances and situations, a lot of us would never be at peace. But because it's about God, and because this amazing counselor is available to us and wants to guide us and lead us and give us the directions home, we can just say, I trust you, God. Here's what I would say to you. You know what is the greatest testimony in the world? The greatest story in the world that convinces people that Jesus did move into the neighborhood is when all hell is breaking loose on you in your life. When your actions and your attitude, your walk and talk say to people, I'm at peace. Because what happens then is people are saying to you, your friends are coming to you, Your social media team is coming, although they're saying, what in the world? How is it that you're doing this? This doesn't make sense. If I was going through what you were going through, I would be tearing my hair out. If I was going through what you were going through, I would be cursing the world out. If I was going through what you were going through, I would be fill in the blank. And then you can say, yeah, I would too. But I just have this amazing, wonderful counselor. And they're like, what's the counselor's name? What's the counselor's name? Give me that person's number. I want to make an appointment. And you can say to them, here's how the appointment's made. You turn your life over to Jesus, who came to be the amazing, wonderful counselor for you. You say, well, James, that just sounds like you told me. No, I'm not saying that the problems go away. I'm not saying that the chaos goes away. I'm not saying the gridlock goes away. But there's something about the counselor that can give you peace in the midst of the gridlock and the confusion and all of that. And it will confound the world how you're behaving the way you're behaving, how your attitude is the way your attitude is, how your walk and talk looks like Jesus in the midst of chaos. And then your response can be, it's not me, it's the GPS, the God positioning spirit, who's my amazing and wonderful counselor. See, here's the deal. We have a tendency to, when all kinds of chaos is going in our lives, we have a tendency to run to everyone else. And we're telling this person and telling that person, telling this person, and we're getting this advice and that advice and this advice. And those people have They might even have a little experience, but they don't know your situation. The amazing, wonderful counselor knows you, knows your situation, and will show you the direction through all the chaos home. So what do you do when your directions feel jammed? What do you do when the traffic is overwhelming? What do you do? I think the first thing you do, I'm going to give you 3 things, practical things you can take with you. Pause before you honk. Pause before you honk. Prayer isn't the last resort. It's the first lane change. Pause before you honk. Before you go and try everything else, before you go and tell grandma and uncle and all your friends and everything like that, before you do all of that, why not just say, Jesus, you know this. You've already seen into the future. So God the Holy Spirit, would you take this? Would you give me directions? Would you help me know how to take the next step in this situation? Pause before you honk. Prayer, don't make it the last resort. I hear people all the time and say, I finally just prayed about it. I finally just prayed about it. Maybe you just pray about it in the beginning and give it and allow God to have it. And what you're just doing is you're just following the lead. If he shines the spotlight here, you just kind of take the step there. If he tells you to stop, you stop. If he tells you to go left, you go left. Right, you go right. Slow down, you slow down. Number 2, check who's driving. If Jesus isn't steering your decisions, no wonder you feel tiring. No wonder you feel wore out and tired and things feel like they're chaotic. I told you a couple of days ago, you can't just open the trunk and let Jesus out of the trunk when you get here and then put him back in the trunk to next Sunday. Maybe you just open the trunk and say, Jesus, take the wheel. You be in charge. So you ask this question, where have I been navigating without your direction? Amazing counselor. Wonderful counselor, where have I been going without your direction? Let me know. And number 3, follow the guidance even when it's slow. I'm a fast person. I want to know the end. I want to know the destination. I want to get there fast. And I drive fast cars. I go fast. I'm a fast person. You're like, James, the way you're speaking up there, you are a fast person, but that's another story. I'm a fast person. But sometimes the way that God is directing me is slow. And I've got to be patient. Because what I've learned in life, when I get ahead of God, when I run in front of him, I usually am running in the wrong direction and I mess up. I don't know about you. But sometimes the direction is slow, and the counselor's wisdom often reroutes us through trust and patience and forgiveness. It's not the fastest way, but it's the right way. When GPSs first hit the market, I was traveling. I was traveling for a college, and I was going all kinds of places, and I loved them because I can get where I'm going. But one of the things I didn't like in the first models of them, they would do this rerouting. And so I would try to pretend like I'm not lost when Rose and the kids would be in the car, and it would say rerouting. And so it would give me up on being actually lost. You know, guys don't like to admit they lost. They just kind of finding a different direction to do it. But here's the reality. The reality is even sometimes you just kind of do your own thing, right? And you kind of say, well, I know that GPS is taking me this way. I know God's positioning spirit is taking me this way, but I want to go a shortcut. I want to go another way. Have you ever done that and you decided, you know what, I'm going to go another way, and then end up in the worst place that you can end up? I was making a travel. I was making my way from Boston to Philly, and I had to go through New York. And I don't know if you know New York, but on the 95, there's this place in New York that you go through, and it's in the Bronx. You kind of make your way through the Bronx, and there's this tenement. It's called Co-op City. Co-op City was one of these 1960 kind of utopian, large, high-rise apartment complex kind of city-like thing. And I decided I was going low on gas, and I like to run my gas to the very end, and I don't know why, but there's some kind of challenge in that for me. And so I was doing my gas thing, and I was running out of gas, and I knew I had to get off on this exit. I was going to run out of gas, and I got off on the exit, and I was right in Co-op City, and the car ran out of gas. And Co-op City is not the place that you run out of gas. Because as I looked around, any cars that were parked there didn't have tires. They were on bricks or whatever. And I began to freak out. Because I had taken my own way and done my own thing and not listened to my GPS. And I remember calling my mom and saying, Mom, I'm stuck right in the middle of Co-op City in the Bronx. And I can't get out of the car and go knock on. There's nothing. My mom called some relatives of mine who made their 20-minute route with some gas in a can, and I got out of that situation. But it can be the same situation in our lives. God's positioning spirit can be saying, go this way, and you say, well, I know a shortcut. God can say, I want you to wait and do this relationship right. And you say, well, I know, God, you want me to do relationship right, but I'm going to take a shortcut. And the shortcut usually takes us away from God's will for us. And you can say, well, God, I want to get this promotion, and I know you want me to do it this way, but I want to take a shortcut. Or God, I know I want these things, and I know I don't have the money for these things, so I'm going to take a shortcut, and I'm going to put this on a credit card, and I end up in debt. Or God, I need this in my life. And God's saying, well, I need you to do it this way. I need you to wait. I want you to wait. I want you to be patient. Wait on the Lord. You say, God, I don't have time to wait. I'm going to take a shortcut. And those shortcuts always mess us up. Here's the good news. When we do that, God's not mad at us. He simply says, return to me, and I'll show you the way home. He simply begins to reroute our destination and shows us the way home. Listen what Psalms 46:1 says. God is a safe place to hide, ready to help when we need him. Ready to help means he's always available. It means he's never offline. It means Jesus, the amazing counselor, his spirit is not a 9 to 5 session. He's open 24/7, and he's available to us 24/7. Whatever the situation is, whatever the need is, whatever the concern is, whatever the diagnosis is, whatever the financial issue is, whatever that's going on in your life. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's a messed up relationship. Maybe it's a hurt, a habit, or a hang-up. The amazing counselor, wonderful counselor, is always at our disposal, ready to help. Some of you walked in today and your hearts were idling. I mean, you're tired of hurt traffic. You're tired of fear traffic. You're tired of pain traffic. You're tired of indecision traffic. You've been trying to coach yourself on it, but you're one wrong turn away from breaking down on the shoulder in the middle of Co-op City. An amazing counselor is calling your name through all of the noise, through all of the chaos and confusion, through all of the traffic jams and gridlock. The amazing, wonderful counselor is calling your name. He's the voice on the other end of the intercom who already knows what your soul is craving. He already knows what you need. And he's waiting for your yes. So the question is, will you say yes? So as we head into Advent, this is your invitation. Pull over, exhale, get out of the driver's seat, and allow Jesus to take over. Because he's the one voice, he's the one counselor that can lead you through all of the gridlock, all of the traffic jams, all of the cutoffs and the sign language and the angry faces and the road rage of life. As he said to the Israelites through the prophet Isaiah long ago, look, there's a son coming. There's a Savior coming. And his name will be Wonderful, Amazing Counselor. And he will be available to you. See, he'll not only get you out of the gridlock, he'll get you home. So maybe your prayer would be something like this: Jesus, my life feels jammed, and I need direction that only you can give. Be my wonderful, amazing counselor. Guide my thoughts, calm my fears, and steer my life in your presence. When life feels gridlock, Jesus is your off-ramp to peace. Would you receive that word today, Salem Fields? Whatever your situation is, whatever you're going through, the amazing, wonderful counselor is there for you. Pray with me today. Father, thank you. Thank you for the promise and the delivery of the amazing, wonderful counselor, the GPS, the God positioning spirit who longs to guide our lives. Father, we show up today online and right here in person with all kinds of stuff going on in our lives. But you're the God who wants to give us peace through your amazing counsel. And so, Father, would you help us take you up on that today? There's some of us here today that do not have that amazing counselor residing inside of us, because there's some people here today who don't have a relationship with you. And their first step is to have a relationship with you. And if you're in the audience today or online and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, you can simply pray a prayer like this: amazing, wonderful counselor, thank you for moving into the neighborhood. And now, Father, I ask that you would allow the amazing counselor, the GPS, the God positioning spirit, to come into the stable of my heart. Would you come into the traffic jam of my heart? And would you take over? Would you drive my car? Would you be in charge? Forgive me of my sins. I confess them. I want your forgiveness. I want a relationship with you. I believe you came and you moved into the neighborhood. I believe you died on the cross and got up on Easter Sunday morning for me, and I receive your love, your forgiveness, your counsel, your peace, and I thank you. There's some other folks in the audience today, and you would, if you were honest, you might admit that you've been driving the car, that you've been in charge, that you've been asking for a bunch of other people about your problems, or you've been trying to self-medicate, self-counsel, and maybe today you would say, Lord, I need to come back to you. We heard the great testimony today during the baptism of Brianna who came back. Maybe today you need to come back. Maybe today your answer is surrender. You have a relationship, but it's on again, off again, and you just need to surrender totally, heart, soul, mind, strength, everything to him. The good news is he's waiting for you just to say yes. Father, thank you. As we respond in these moments, would you help us? In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to respond. Here at Selling Fields, we believe the word is worth responding to. And so I wanted just to tell you about some folks here that would be glad to pray with you today. We'd be glad to pray with you. We'll be here. Maybe today you just need prayer. I don't take that lightly. I take that very seriously. We would love to pray with you. We would love to help you take your next step. Today, we also have communion, and you can take communion today. And maybe as you take the cup and the bread, you make some promises to God. You say, God, I'm going to let you be in charge. Lord, I want your peace. Maybe today you'll go to the cross and you'll just write something down, and as you write it down, you lay it at the cross, you're saying, I'm giving that to God. Maybe today you just need healing in your life. Maybe you got addiction, or you got a physical or mental or spiritual issue, and you just need someone to pray the prayer of faith over your life. Pastor Dillman is right back here at the corner here. He would be glad to do that. We're going to all stand and we're going to worship together. Maybe as you worship, you just take a posture of surrender or a posture of praise, and you just allow God's Spirit to wash over you and to renew you today. Let's stand and respond together.